Fellow gardeners, let me share something that completely changed how I think about my garden ecosystem. After 20 years of tending soil and nurturing plants, I discovered a group of botanical allies that work the night shift, literally feeding my entire garden while I'm fast asleep. These aren't mythical creatures or garden fairy tales. They're real plants with extraordinary abilities that can transform your growing space into a self-sustaining paradise. What I'm talking about are nitrogen-fixing plants, and once you understand their secret nighttime magic, you'll never look at your garden the same way again. These remarkable plants have formed partnerships with tiny soil bacteria that capture nitrogen from the air and convert it into plant food, enriching your soil 24/7 without you lifting a finger. The science behind this phenomenon is absolutely fascinating. Nitrogen-fixing plants host special bacteria called rhizobia in small nodules on their roots. These bacteria have the incredible ability to fix atmospheric nitrogen, essentially grabbing it right out of the air and converting it into ammonia, which plants can actually use as fertilizer. Here's where it gets really exciting for us gardeners. This process happens continuously, but it's particularly active during cooler nighttime hours when the plants aren't focused on photosynthesis. While you're sleeping, these plants are literally manufacturing fertilizer underground, pumping nutrients into your soil that will feed not just themselves, but every plant in the surrounding area. The best part? When these nitrogen-fixing plants eventually decompose or when you prune them back, all that captured nitrogen gets released into the soil, creating a natural, slow-release fertilizer that lasts for months. It's like having a fertilizer factory running in your garden around the clock, powered entirely by nature. Let me introduce you to some of the most reliable nitrogen-fixing champions I've discovered over the years. Legumes are the superstars of this category, and they're surprisingly diverse in what they can offer your garden beyond their soil-feeding capabilities. Bush beans and pole beans are probably the most familiar nitrogen fixers to home gardeners. What many people don't realize is that these plants are most active in their nitrogen fixing when they're flowering and setting pods. During these stages, which often extend into the cooler evening hours, they're working overtime to feed your soil. I've seen tomatoes planted near spent bean plants grow with incredible vigor, their leaves a deep, healthy green that speaks to abundant nitrogen availability. Field peas and cowpeas are absolute workhorses in the nitrogen-fixing world. These heat-tolerant plants can fix impressive amounts of nitrogen while providing you with nutritious harvests. Cowpeas in particular thrive in conditions where other plants struggle, making them perfect for challenging garden spots that need soil improvement. Clover varieties deserve special mention because they can serve as living mulch while feeding your soil. I've experimented with crimson clover and white clover as ground covers around my fruit trees, and the results have been, honestly, pretty remarkable. The soil beneath has become noticeably richer and more crumbly, and the trees show improved growth and fruit production. For those interested in perennial options, consider planting nitrogen-fixing trees and shrubs. Black locust, alder, and Russian olive can transform larger spaces while providing structure to your landscape. These woody plants fix nitrogen on a much larger scale, and for many years creating fertility hotspots that benefit entire garden sections. The key to maximizing these plants' soil-feeding benefits lies in thoughtful placement throughout your garden. I've learned that positioning nitrogen fixers strategically can create zones of enhanced fertility that support your most demanding crops. Plant nitrogen-fixing crops in rotation with heavy feeders like tomatoes, peppers, and brassicas. When you follow a nitrogen-hungry crop with beans or peas, you're essentially giving that soil area a fertility boost that will benefit the next season's plantings. This rotation strategy has allowed me to reduce my fertilizer purchases by about 60% over the past 5 years. Consider using nitrogen fixers as companion plants alongside your main crops. Bush beans planted around the perimeter of corn or squash beds continue fixing nitrogen throughout the growing season, feeding not just the soil but potentially sharing nutrients with neighboring plants through underground fungal networks. For permanent garden areas, it's a great idea to establish nitrogen-fixing ground covers or perennial plants that can work year-round. I've created what I like to call fertility islands using perennial clover and vetch in spots where I plan to set up new garden beds. After about 2 seasons, these areas have developed incredibly rich, dark soil that's just perfect and ready for any crop I want to grow. To get the most from your nitrogen-fixing plants' nocturnal activities, timing and care really become crucial. These plants actually fix the most nitrogen when they're healthy and actively growing, so giving them good growing conditions ensures you get the maximum soil benefits. Water management plays a significant role in how efficiently nitrogen gets fixed in your soil. The bacteria that do all the hard work in the nitrogen-fixing process are sensitive to both drought stress and waterlogged conditions. So, maintaining consistent soil moisture, especially during flowering and pod development, keeps your nitrogen factory running at full capacity. So, you really want to avoid over-fertilizing nitrogen-fixing plants with those high nitrogen fertilizers because, well, this can actually shut down the fixation process. The bacteria, they sort of become lazy when nitrogen is just sitting there in the soil, and that kind of defeats the whole purpose of growing these plants for their soil-building properties. Instead, it's better to focus on providing enough phosphorus and potassium, since those nutrients actually support the energy-intensive nitrogen fixation process. Harvest timing, believe it or not, can also impact nitrogen fixation. When you harvest pods for eating, the plants will keep fixing nitrogen as they try to produce more seeds. But, if you're growing these plants purely for soil improvement, letting them reach full maturity before cutting them down and mixing them into the soil will give you the maximum nitrogen benefit. These nitrogen-fixing powerhouses, they really do integrate beautifully with other sustainable gardening practices. In my compost system, I like to layer spent nitrogen-fixing plants with carbon-rich materials like leaves and, paper to create compost that's naturally balanced and incredibly rich. For those practicing no-till gardening, nitrogen-fixing plants serve as excellent living mulches that eventually decompose in place, feeding the soil without disturbing its structure. I've had tremendous success with crimson clover as a winter cover crop that fixes nitrogen through the cooler months and provides organic matter when I plant summer crops directly through it in spring. These plants also support beneficial insects and pollinators, creating a more diverse and resilient garden ecosystem. The flowers of beans, peas, and clovers provide nectar sources while the plants build soil fertility, a perfect example of how sustainable gardening practices can serve multiple purposes simultaneously. Start small and observe how nitrogen-fixing plants perform in your specific growing conditions. Different varieties will excel in different climates and soil types, so experimentation is key to finding your perfect night shift workers. Keep records of where you plant nitrogen-fixing crops and, observe the performance of subsequent plantings in those areas. This data will help you refine your strategy and identify the most effective nitrogen fixers for your garden's unique conditions. Consider the growing season and plan succession plantings to maintain continuous nitrogen fixation. Cool season peas followed by warm season beans can, honestly, keep the nitrogen factory running from early spring through fall, maximizing the soil building benefits throughout the growing season. These remarkable plants represent one of nature's most elegant solutions to soil fertility. While you sleep, they're working tirelessly to build the foundation for abundant harvests, healthier plants, and reduced dependence on external fertilizers. The transformation in my garden since embracing these nitrogen-fixing allies has been nothing short of remarkable. My soil is richer, my plants are healthier, and my fertilizer costs have plummeted, all thanks to these silent partners working the night shift. Ready to put these secret soil feeders to work in your garden? Start with simple bush beans or field peas this season, and, honestly, just watch the magic unfold. Your soil will thank you, your plants will thrive, and you'll sleep better knowing your garden is being fed around the clock. If this article has opened your eyes to the hidden world of nitrogen-fixing plants, Make sure to subscribe to Soil Sage Chronicles for more soil-building secrets and sustainable gardening strategies. Share this knowledge with fellow gardeners. Together, we can grow healthier gardens while working with nature's incredible systems. What nitrogen-fixing experiments will you try in your garden? I'd love to hear about your experiences in the comments below.